guys, today is a continuation of the previous video I did on how to remove the intercooler on my 2005 Subaru WRX. Today we're going to go ahead and install the Perrin Turbo Heat Shield. I did have my motor rebuilt back in July, and when it was rebuilt, the mechanic never installed a turbo heat shield, which makes sense because it's an aftermarket downpipe, so the stock one does not fit. So what I did was, I'll show you a picture in a minute, I actually have a turbo heat shield bracket. This should have been reinstalled by the mechanic, but they didn't. So I have nothing to install the turbo heat shield to. There is a turbo heat shield bracket that is in place. So I do have one bolt that I can bolt to, but I really need to secure the turbo heat shield properly. So I'm going to be installing this guy first, and then I'll be going ahead and installing the turbo heat shield. So let me show you what I'm working with. Alrighty, so here is our downpipe, which you can see right here. It's actually Invidia. Then we have our turbo housing, and here is our turbo. Now, the heat shield will come like this over top of the housing to help dissipate some of that heat from getting up here, which where the intercooler sits. So this bracket that we have to install first will actually go right here. We'll go right on these bolts. So I do need to go ahead and install that. So I do need to unbolt the downpipe, which is always a little stressful because, you know, when you unbolt it, then you have to deal with, you know, re-securing it, resealing it to make sure you don't have any boost leaks. So always a little nerve-wracking, but we'll make do. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna undo these bolts, slide on my upper turbo heat shield bracket, re-bolt it down, and then what we're gonna do is put the heat shield on, which will sit right here. Alrighty, so I thought I would show you guys what we're actually installing. So here is the Perrin Turbo Heat Shield, as you guys can see. This will actually cover the entire turbo and also the housing. So what I did was I just went ahead and got the bracket on. It actually worked out really well. I thought I would have some issues breaking away the bolt that attaches the downpipe to the turbo housing, but it worked out perfect. It came off really easy. So we're going to go ahead and install this now. The reason I went with this one, as you can see, it's more enclosed. A lot of the other ones that are out there, like your Grimspeed or your Cobb, it's really just flat piece that attaches directly to the intercooler bracket, and it just is one flat top to help cut off the heat from dissipating. This is more encloses the entire turbo housing. So I thought, you know, this was more expensive. I think this one's like 75, 80, somewhere in there, versus the other ones are cheaper, like 50, 60-ish. So I thought, why not pay a few extra bucks and get something that, to me, logically seems like it would do a better job of keeping that heat away. So I did go ahead and get the bracket installed. I tightened it by hand first. I want to make sure everything lines up. So let's go ahead and get this guy installed. Okay, so we were able to get our Perrin Turbo Heat Shield installed. Struggled a little bit, and I wanted to go over a few tips and tricks that I did that made things a little bit easier after I realized them. So first thing is, right over here you can see you have your transmission dipstick. I pulled that out because it was in the way of tightening the bolt right here. But what I did was I actually took a towel and stuck it here, because the last thing in the world you want as you're tightening this bolt down is it for any part of it to fall down into the transmission. So towel over top of here is a must. You know, I pulled out my dipstick, it's sitting right here on a towel. And then you have the second bolt here. This was the easiest bolt, but I would not do these two first. Over on this side of the Turbo Heat Shield, on the Perrin side, down below here, all the way down in here, there is you have to get your hand all the way down in there and tighten, and that is the hardest one, tighten the bolt down there. That tightens to the lower Turbo Heat Shield bracket. This is the first one to do because it's the hardest, and you need this shield to be able to have the most wiggle room to it. So do that one first, then come over here, tighten, I did this one, not all the way down, and then finally I tightened this one there. So there is the finished setup for our Perrin Turbo Heat Shield. A few things that I would recommend. I ended up using my lovely magnetic stick. This is pretty much just a nice little stick to reach down. I ended up dropping those bolts 3 times, so I needed to fish them out of my engine bay. This guy's awesome. You can get these pretty much anywhere. You know, that has a little button on it for like a little flashlight to it, which is nice. So if you can't see anything, that works out well. So that worked out nicely. Alrighty, so our Perrin Turbo Heat Shield is installed. I'm happy with it. It looks really, really good. As you guys can see, you know, at first glance on the motor, you can see it right from here. And you have the nice little stitching here of Perrin, you know, right on the side there. So turned out really well, really happy with it. So as I said, a few tips and tricks there. Make sure you do the one on the passenger side bolt first. Make sure you cover the transmission dipstick opening with a towel, and then you do the 2 other bolts on that side there. Other than that, it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. You know, as always, you of course have to remove the intercooler, so that took a little bit longer, but everything worked out well. So our Perrin Turbo Heat Shield is finally installed. It's been sitting here in my garage since Christmas. My wife got it for me. You know, we removed the intercooler, we installed the Turbo Heat Shield. Now in our next video, we will be installing these guys here. These are the Mishimoto silicone hose kit for the intercooler. So we'll be going through removing the stock intercooler hoses, installing these aftermarket ones, and then going ahead and reinstalling the intercooler in the car. So hopefully you guys did enjoy that video and was helpful for you if you're going to be installing a Perrin Turbo Heat Shield. As always, hit subscribe and make sure you click that bell. Make sure it's active so you're notified when another video goes live. As always, take care.